Exactly 1 year ago, we had that big, beautiful victory. Exactly 1 year. Last night, it was, not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure it was good for anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. And we're going to talk about that, and I'll say a few remarks, and then after that, I'll ask the press to leave.
All right, folks, so we have some urgent breaking news. I want you to consider how arrogant and delusional Donald Trump is 99.9% of the time. Well, there he is on camera, assembled in front of Republican senators and on live TV admitting that last night's election was a blue wave which crushed his party, the Republican Party, so badly that not only is he saying it to them on camera and therefore the American people, he says in a moment, I got to kick the press out because we got to have a full-blown panic and cope session. That's exactly what they did. If there's any doubt whatsoever in your mind that last night was incredibly impactful, look no further than Donald Trump admitting on live TV, yeah, we got crushed and we got to talk about it privately. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, a lot was said on camera and off camera during this meeting, and we're probably going to talk about 2 or 3 separate videos because there was all sorts of things discussed. For example, the filibuster. We're going to talk about that in a separate video. Let's just suffice it to say Trump is amping up his pressure campaign to get Republicans to abolish the filibuster. We'll talk about that separately. I really want to focus on the other remarks said, and predominantly the remarks where Trump is like, yeah, we got our asses kicked. Here's another clip.
But I thought we'd have a discussion after the press leaves about what last night represented and what we should do about it, and also about the shutdown, and how that relates to last night. I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans, and that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor, but I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that.
It's probably true, right? Donald Trump motivates his base in ways that other Republicans simply don't. It's become an authoritarian cult of personality. So it probably did redound to the Democrats' advantage that he wasn't on the ballot, and yet he was a central issue in the campaign. Make no mistake about it. The 2 major campaign issues, the through line that helped Zohran Mamdani win the New York City mayoral race, that allowed Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger win crucial gubernatorial races. 2 issues, affordability and Trump. Affordability and being anti-Trump. So Trump was absolutely on the ballot in a way, but not in the way which usually redounds to the Republicans' advantage. So again, Trump saying, listen, we got our asses kicked and we got to talk about this off camera. Well, we have some reporting from reporters about, according to sources, about the conversation that they had off camera. This is huge. And again, it's going to become a recurring theme in today's videos. So this is from Andrew Desisaradio, and I forget where he's from, Punchbowl News, okay? So Jake Sherman's outfit, Punchbowl News. News inside the room poll for multiple GOP senators. After the reporters were kicked out, Trump said the election results showed that the shutdown has been, quote, worse for us than for them, and that Republicans, quote, are getting killed. Okay, I want to repeat that. So to Trump, the government shutdown and the election go hand in hand, and he's admitting that he's losing on the shutdown, and it resulted in a blue wave which crushed the Republicans. Trump said the GOP will become, quote, a dead party if they don't nuke the filibuster. And again, we're going to talk about that primarily in a separate video. Trump got into it with Lindsey Graham after Graham tried to make the point that they can still use reconciliation to pass legislation with a simple majority. Trump snapped at Graham, quote, Lindsey, you and I both know there's so much you can't do with reconciliation. And remember, reconciliation is an exception to the filibuster rule. The filibuster means you have to have 60 votes to invoke cloture, to end debate, to pass legislation. Reconciliation are finance and budget-related bills, and I think you can only pass 2 per year. And again, it has to be limited, at least on paper, to finance and budget, and all you need is a simple majority. And so what Trump is saying is, well, there's a lot of shit I want to do that's outside the scope of reconciliation, so I need you to get rid of the filibuster. Again, we'll talk about that in a separate video. What's important for this video is Trump is admitting he's losing the shutdown, and he is losing elections, that they are losing elections, that the Republicans are getting crushed in large part because of this. So, with those shocking admissions from Trump aside, let's hear some of his other comments.
I've heard that about 4 times. I heard it after Kings, they said I was a king. And I heard it after Kings. I heard it after a couple of other moments in time. And I said, no, I don't believe so. And now I heard it's after the election. I don't believe so. I think they will. I think they're kamikaze pilots. I just got back from Japan. I talked about the kamikaze pilots. I think these guys are kamikaze. They'll take down the country if they have.
So he's referring to Democratic lawmakers who are refusing to bend the knee to him, at least so far. And by the way, there is some disturbing reporting indicating that more moderate Democrats are prepared to basically cave on the shutdown. I hope that's not true, especially in light of yesterday's, blue wave. I hope that's not the case, but only time will tell. Democrats should be reinvigorated by this and say, no, stand your ground. Make sure you extract meaningful, important, tangible concessions from Trump and the Republicans before you give him the votes that he's seeking. Okay, I hope they hold the line here. And if they don't, it's a big fucking problem. Here's another clip.
I think so. Millions of Americans are going to be without SNAP benefits. And I will say about SNAP benefits, so when I was president, we had $7 billion worth, and now they have many times that, because these benefits were given to anybody that asked, and they're up to, I hear, just many times, $47 billion. So it wasn't the purpose of SNAP. It was for people that really had problems, down and out, people that really had problems. But during Biden, they gave it to anybody that wanted it. I think it's something you have to talk about because the numbers are incredible. But countless public servants are now not being paid, and the air traffic control system is under increasing strain.
The air traffic control system has been under strain since Trump took office. As you know, we had a bunch of high-profile accidents since the Trump administration took over. And indeed, that's a problem. That's another reason why Trump should negotiate with Democrats in order to have an end to the shutdown. Number one. Number two, we actually saw a massive spike in SNAP benefits or SNAP recipients under the Trump administration in 2020 during COVID. So that was on his watch, even though he wants us to pretend somebody else was president at the time. And number three, Trump swore publicly that he would defy two federal court orders, ordering him to pay SNAP benefits from contingency funds. And he said yesterday, we did a video about this, that he's not going to do that until the government shutdown ends. So he is defying court orders. Then Carolyn Levitt came out and said, no, we're actually going to comply with the court orders. So it's like, well, is Trump stupid? Are you managing Trump? Is this a Weekend at Bernie's thing where you're puppeteering him? Is he lying? I mean, either way, there's no interpretation which looks good for Trump here. So maybe you need to get your facts straight. So it seems like Trump is once again doubling down on this. Here's another clip.
They're not going to get the approval because the Democrat radical left lunatic senators are saying you can't, we're not going to approve you. And if we're not going to approve you, I had actually one Republican who got two great letters, but it turned out that he was a rhino, but that was a nice term for him. Now, he got two letters of approval, and when I said two Democrats approved him, I had to fire him because I figured if two Democrats approved him, they wrote the most beautiful letters. I found out, man, this is strange, and he was no good. I fired him. He was really not much of a Republican. The recommendation of that one wasn't such a good recommendation. Someday I'll tell you who recommended him, but it wasn't exactly the best. But they're not going.
So again, Donald Trump indicating that he has no interest in working in any sort of bipartisan fashion with the Democratic Party. So it's not exactly that much of a surprise that he would do like this. And I actually want to close on one kind of random note here, which is Donald Trump comparing his administration to Xi Jinping of China, and again, doubling down on how much more he wants to be like Xi Jinping in a really disturbing way. Check this out.
He's a tough man, smart man, actually, very smart. The press doesn't like it when I call him very smart. They think I'm not supposed to call him smart, but at least 1.4 billion people, without question. In fact, during the meeting, we were there. A couple of you were there, and some of you saw it. So he's here, and he's got about 6 people on each side, and every one of those people was standing like this. They were at attention. And I made a comment to one of them, and he got no response. I said, are you going to answer me? I got no response. And President Xi didn't let him have any. So if there's any question, I said, I want my cabinet to behave like that. That's what I'm demanding that I want them sitting up like that, Tim, just nice and straight. I never saw posture like that. I've never seen men so scared in their lives. They have the equivalent of a vice president. I said, are you going to answer my question? And he's like, he doesn't move. I said, what's wrong with this guy? I will answer all questions. Why don't you behave like that? JD doesn't behave like that.
Yeah, So again, and also we're going to do a separate video about Trump and JD as relates to this meeting. Again, there's so much to unpack here after this blue wave. But yeah, it says something kind of creepy that Donald Trump wants his cabinet. I mean, this isn't new. He's just articulating it in more public ways that he wants his cabinet to behave like, terrified sycophants. And he's done quite a bit in his power to make that the case. And then, of course, these Republican senators are laughing along like, yes, great joke, sir. I fully agree. We should all be scared shitless of you, which most of them are. So again, folks, there's a lot to unpack here, but the purpose of this video is, again, to emphasize that Donald Trump is publicly recognizing on camera to the faces of Republican senators that they got their asses kicked in last night's elections, and he is worried, and he's so worried that they need to have a private conversation and panic session about what happened. That's important. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.